For over 2 weeks, detectives had been secretly monitoring Daniel Stern's every action. One morning, he placed something in the back of his pickup truck, picked up a shovel, and drove toward a secluded location known as the compound. Ground surveillance units, supported by a police helicopter, tracked his movements from start to finish. Officers observed him repeatedly entering the woods, returning to his truck, taking various objects farther into the forest, and then moving toward a nearby canal, almost as though he was attempting to eliminate the final traces left behind. When the helicopter was close to running out of fuel, the crew was forced to leave the area at the exact moment the suspect took another item into the woods. The teams on the ground continued watching him. Several hours later, investigators made the decision to take Daniel into custody at the location itself. A police canine started alerting officers at several different spots throughout the compound. Search crews moved through the wooded area, and soon after, they uncovered something that would completely alter the direction of the case. Hidden among the ashes, burned earth, and scattered debris, investigators began discovering human bones. It was not just a small number of remains, there were hundreds. Forensic specialists still needed to identify who the bones belonged to, but by that point, one disturbing fact had already become impossible to ignore. The search for a missing mother of two had transformed into a horrific homicide investigation, and all evidence pointed toward one conclusion. The man investigators had been following that morning knew much more about those remains than he was ever prepared to reveal. Hey everyone, let me take a quick moment here. I'm really interested in knowing where you're watching from, so leave a comment and tell me what city you're in and what time it is where you are right now. I appreciate you taking a second to share that. Go ahead and drop it below, and now let's get back to the story. When Nancy Howery, a mother of two, suddenly vanished without leaving any trace behind, investigators began looking into several possible scenarios that could explain her disappearance.
I just think he's behind this because he could have paid off these guys. He knew that he would drive her crazy. He knew that.
I don't know what happened to her. I feel in my heart that I'm expecting her to show up. Okay. I am truly expecting her to show up. But I don't know.
Ultimately, the investigation focused on a single suspect. What authorities discovered next was a horrifying reality that no one could have imagined.
Is that her? I think it is.
Nancy and Todd Howery spent the majority of their 16-year marriage residing in California. Todd was employed in the technology industry and brought in a strong income. Over time, the couple accumulated a real estate portfolio that included homes in multiple states, including Florida. They had 2 children, a daughter and a son, who were roughly 2 years apart in age. The family regularly traveled with Nancy's parents, who had moved to the United States from Brazil years earlier. Nancy also operated a YouTube channel where she primarily uploaded videos in her native Portuguese. Through her content, viewers saw what appeared to be a joyful family life. She posted videos of her children spending time together, shared baking advice, and reviewed some of the best toys for families traveling with kids. From an outside perspective, Nancy and Todd seemed to be living a comfortable and happy life with their family in California. However, in 2019, problems started to emerge within their marriage. Todd began to suspect that Nancy was involved in an affair while she was staying at a duplex they owned near Pompano Beach. As it turned out, his suspicions may have had some basis. Their marriage quickly deteriorated, and Nancy filed for divorce. Even though the divorce was finalized in 2020, the tension between them continued as they tried to adjust to their separate lives in Florida. By 2023, they had shared custody of their children, who were 13 and 11 years old at the time. According to their custody agreement, they alternated taking the children to school and picking them up afterward, while also dividing weekends with them equally. On February 16th of that year, Nancy failed to arrive at the school to pick up the children. When school officials reached out to Todd, he was caught off guard, but he was not immediately alarmed. Overall, he did not have a particularly high opinion of his former wife's parenting. But on February 17th, for the second consecutive day, Nancy once again did not come to collect either her son or her daughter. On Saturday, February 18th, Todd reported Nancy missing to the Indian Harbor Beach Police Department, the agency responsible for the area where Nancy was renting a house approximately 10 miles northeast of Palm Bay. The next morning, investigators received their first significant lead. Nancy's vehicle was discovered abandoned on the side of Oak Leaf Street near Platt Avenue in the southeastern area of Palm Bay. Officer Press contacted the individual who had reported the suspicious vehicle and found out that it had remained in the exact same location, parked at a slight angle for approximately 4 or 5 days. No one had witnessed who left the vehicle there, and there were no nearby surveillance cameras that could have recorded the moment it was abandoned.
Do you know anything about this van down here?
No, it was down there for days.
Days?
Days.
Like how many days? Can you guess?
About a week.
About a week.
Yeah.
So over last weekend it's been there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Has it moved at all, or just sitting in that same
Just
spot?
sitting in that spot. At the first time when I had recognized, I said, well, maybe somebody told somebody on our street that they, saying left it there. And it was like, but nobody, I talked with them and they said, no, nobody said nothing. And I thought maybe somebody was sleeping in there in the back. So.
Several days had already gone by since anyone had last seen or communicated with Nancy. Based on what investigators were able to establish, Nancy had exchanged text messages with her children and communicated with other family members on February 14th, Valentine's Day. The next morning, Wednesday, her cell phone connected to the mobile network for the final time. Officer Press passed that information along to the Indian Harbor Beach police sergeant who was overseeing the investigation at that point.
So we got a call about a suspicious vehicle, which comes back to your guys' Signal 8, Nancy.
Okay.
Basically what the complainant said is that the vehicle has been sitting here since Tuesday, February 14th, which I see was the day of the last contact with her.
Okay.
And it's basically just been sitting here unoccupied, untouched, unmoved since then. And nobody saw anybody get out of it, nobody in or around it.
At that stage, almost all of the information investigators had about the case came from Todd Howery. While he did not have many positive things to say about his former wife, he also seemed to be sincerely worried about what had happened to the mother of his children.
The ex-husband is the complainant, and she's a drinker. She's known to go on benders and kind of disappear. The kids have been with dad. The kids, when I tell you everybody comes in cool as a cucumber yesterday, you would have thought that mom was just down the street at Publix.
Okay.
But just in case, I don't want to be that agency on the local news. Officers sat on their hands for a week while this, was a hot incident.
Yeah, so, are you feeling...
More officers arrived at the scene where Nancy's vehicle had been discovered to assist with searching the surrounding area. As investigators uncovered additional evidence, the circumstances surrounding her disappearance became increasingly suspicious.
No, the car's locked. I looked in it, it looks like there's a driver's license sitting on the front seat, but it's turned over. It's a bank card on the front seat.
She had a shit ton of food and water in here. Like, a bunch. And a bunch of beans. Definitely feeding the homeless? No. And she clearly ran away. Or got groceries and something has happened.
Yeah.
I wonder, this looks like that's a man's hand.
They said that it's, I talked to her. She said that she hasn't seen anyone in or around the car since it's been here.
Oh yeah, there's a separation and her bag is in there.
So. Yeah, it looks like she's went and got groceries and then something happened.
Yeah, that handprint is kind of weird.
They got beans in there and everything. Dry beans, canned beans.
That handprint is kind of weird.
Yeah.
As officers continued combing through the area and attempting to understand what may have happened, detectives focused on gathering as much information as possible about Nancy. At that stage of the investigation, their main source of details was still her former husband, Todd Howery.
She drinks like no one you've ever seen.
Okay.
And I'm sure you guys have seen a lot. And so when she didn't pick the children up for the second day, I went out to the Brevard County Sheriff's, the bookings site, because that's where she's been arrested twice. She's currently on probation. You know all this, okay? You know, it's not out of the norm, you know, almost. Maybe a little long, but out of the norm. I expected her to be passed out somewhere.
So when was the last time you spoke with her?
That would have been the day.
Same day?
We don't talk.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't talk.
So you guys
Texting is, you can see our texting. Our texting is, you're old and fat, you're going to die soon, and I say you're drunk and you're an unfit mom, you know?
So you guys haven't texted or talked since December, is that correct?
No, that's not correct. No.
Okay. So when was the last time you guys actually texted each other?
These are the last text messages, okay? You can see that. They're basically, you're old and fat. Those two are the ones that I'm basically saying, you know, please contact us.
Okay, so
It was
January 20th.
January 20th was the last time.
7:55 in the morning.
Right.
Okay.
And you can just see the hostility and vitriol between the two of us, you know?
Yeah, and then February 16th, I see that you tried to text her saying, contact them, it's not fair.
Right.
Okay, and then yesterday, again, please let us know what's going on, kids miss you. Okay.
I actually, this morning was the first time that as I was driving down the road, I was looking at homeless people to see if maybe somehow she's just...
At the same time, officers searched the wooded area beside the road where Nancy's minivan had been discovered. Considering what Todd had told them about Nancy's episodes of heavy drinking, along with the fact that her vehicle was left near a known homeless encampment, investigators believed there was a possibility that they could locate the mother of two in that area.
Just beware for needles and stuff. Pomade police! You don't have to announce yourself until you see a camp.
What do you think happened to her?
At this point, I don't know. I don't know what happened to her.
I mean, in your gut, if you had to, you know her past, you know her better than we do. You know her. What do you think in your heart of hearts happened to her?
I'm at a loss what happened. I would like to say that I feel in my heart that I'm expecting her to show up.
Okay.
I am truly expecting her to show up. But I don't know. At this point, this is ridiculously long.
Hi, Sarge. It's Officer Press again.
Hey, how you doing, sir?
I'm good. So they got no luck over at that homeless camp.
Damn it! That was my ace. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I got my detective in route. He's got your number. I appreciate what you guys did today.
While detectives were speaking with Todd Howery, they also contacted Nancy's mother, Maureen. She told investigators that if her daughter had been harmed in a crime, she knew exactly who they should investigate first, her former husband, Todd. According to Maureen, their divorce had been highly contentious, and she believed Todd was continuing to make Nancy's life difficult even after the marriage had ended. At the same time, Maureen admitted that Nancy had also been involved with other men. During that conversation, two names were mentioned, Matthew and Daniel.
When was the last time they were supposed to meet, Matthew and her?
That date. I don't know. One girl told me that she just went crazy and she got drunk and she said, I've got 5 meetings today. I'm going on my 3rd one right now. One of them was Daniel. One of them was Matthew. And then the other ones were some friggers off of Timber or whatever that station's called. Timber or Tinter, I don't know.
Tinder? Okay.
I mean, everyone's focusing on the fact that she drinks and there were men involved. But the real monster is her husband who drove her to crazy.
So you're thinking the husband and not Daniel?
I just think he's behind this because he could have paid off these guys. He knew that he would drive her crazy. He knew that she would go to Timber. He knew the boyfriends that she had before. Everything she got from working was going into lawyers, and he knew that. He's destroying her, that monster.
Well, ma'am, like I said, we've been looking into this. We're looking into everybody. I also don't want to look into the wrong people.
Todd Howery's alibi for the period when his ex-wife disappeared was completely confirmed. Investigators reviewed his cell phone records and collected surveillance footage from multiple stores, verifying that he had been exactly where he said he was. Even with the intense conflict that existed between the former couple, Todd Howery was ruled out as a suspect. As detectives pieced together Nancy's movements on February 15th, they discovered that at approximately 11 o'clock that morning, she went to visit her friend, Yana Ramos. The two spent time drinking coffee and talking in their native language, Portuguese. However, Yana noticed that Nancy appeared unusually distracted. She continued receiving text messages from one of the men she had been involved with. His name was Daniel Stearns.
She said she was sitting here and her friend was over there, and she made some coffee and stuff, and then the phone started to die, so she plugged it in. She stood there texting with Daniel while talking to her.
Okay, this is Nancy, correct?
Yes.
Yes, Nancy.
Okay, and what were they saying as they communicated?
On Valentine's Day, they were together and they got into an argument.
Okay.
And they were just trying to resolve the issues.
Her and Daniel?
Her and Daniel were just trying to talk it over and resolve the issues.
Okay.
Yana was unable to recall the exact details of the text exchange between Nancy and Daniel. However, Nancy told her that the two had reconciled after an argument the previous day. She said she was happy again and ready to continue celebrating Valentine's Day, plans that had been put on hold because of their disagreement. Around noon, Nancy left in her minivan to meet Daniel. No one ever saw or heard from her again. Early in the investigation, on February 19th, the same day Nancy's abandoned minivan was discovered on Oakleaf Street, investigators had already spoken with 32-year-old Daniel Stearns. At the time, Daniel told police that he had not seen or communicated with Nancy in several weeks. But Yana's statement, combined with the information recovered from Nancy's phone, revealed a completely different picture. Detectives from the sheriff's office decided it was time to speak with Daniel once again.
How are you doing? I'm Agent Tyler Peters with the sheriff's office. I think Palme came out to you and spoke with you previously about Nancy. Do you remember what that was about?
Yeah, just asked me where it was. Last spoken to her.
Okay. So we, the Brevard County Sheriff's Office, have since taken over the case. I'm the actual one working it, so I figured I'd come talk to you just to see what you know. I don't know what information you would have. From what I understand, I guess you guys are friends. Is that right?
Yeah, like I told last guys, we fallen out. We were, seeing each other, every once in a while.
Okay.
It would work a lot.
When did you guys have a falling out?
When I spoke to him, I said it was a week. I wanted to just, just completely fall out. Deleted numbers. I think I blocked the numbers as well.
Okay.
32-year-old Daniel Stearns, a U.S. Army veteran who had served in Afghanistan, met 44-year-old Nancy Howery, a mother of two, through Tinder more than 2 years before her disappearance. Their descriptions of the relationship were different, but there was no question that the two had been romantically involved during that period. According to Daniel, they ended their relationship several weeks before Nancy went missing because, among other things, she had not respected the boundaries and rules they had set within their relationship.
It's not clicking, following boundaries, rules, relationship rules like that. So I'm just like, I don't want to continue. It's not good for me.
So she wasn't following rules, or both of you, or just her?
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want someone who goes and see the other men. You know,
Yeah. Okay. And how did you guys speak? Over the phone?
Yeah.
Did you guys text, call, FaceTime, Snapchat?
It was a call, Snapchat, but call. Like no, she called me from different types of. It was either WhatsApp,
Okay.
Snapchat.
Daniel immediately told detectives that after their breakup, he had erased all of his messages with Nancy. He also claimed that he had deleted his Snapchat account, though he later downloaded the app again and created a new account. According to Daniel, he did this because he was worried about the privacy of his personal information. However, that was not the detail that concerned investigators the most. Earlier, Daniel had told detectives from the Palm Bay Police Department that he had not communicated with Nancy in several weeks. But by that point, investigators knew that on the exact morning she disappeared, Nancy had been arranging plans to meet with him. So detectives questioned Daniel again about his final contact with the mother of two.
So from the 19th, you said about a week before that?
Yeah, like I said, a week and some days.
When you say a week and some days, how many days?
Not more than half a week.
Okay. If you don't mind me asking, what was your Snapchat?
I don't know. That good vibe. Yeah.
Good vibe?
Yeah.
Okay. So you last saw her about a week prior to them coming out, or you spoke with her. Is that correct? Or did you see her?
About the Snapchat. Yeah, of course the Snapchat's deleted, so be able to find that Snapchat.
Hers or yours? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but I have a new one.
Okay.
Detectives then asked Daniel the same question they had asked Todd only a few days earlier. What do you think happened to Nancy? Unlike her former husband, who appeared genuinely confused and unable to understand where she could have gone, Daniel quickly directed investigators toward another possible suspect, one of Nancy's other romantic partners. He told detectives that one of Nancy's previous relationships had included incidents of domestic violence, and also claimed that she had continued meeting other men through Tinder.
Do you know what could have happened to her?
Well, like I said, before the guy who was registered, who very likely registered a domestic violence case against her, she would tell me that he would be stalking her.
Okay.
And I think I remember her calling, police, telling the police about it, saying she did.
Okay.
In that time, saying that she doesn't want to see me because he might be coming around and stuff like that.
Okay.
That's pretty much all I have about him.
And when did she tell you this information?
It's definitely over a year ago from when I last saw her. Actually,
a year ago since you last saw her?
Yeah. That she told me about him. Year and some months, yeah.
I don't know if I understand what.
Like, the duration of the relationship. When she told me about him, he was, had a physical altercation with.
So she had an altercation with him over a year ago?
Yeah, that was his ex, and like I said, likely a run-in with the police.
22 all night.
I mostly think that's true.
Mostly think what's true?
That she had the run-in with the police a lot.
Oh, so the domestic violence. The Tinder. Do you know if she was contacting anyone within the last maybe say few days prior to you guys kind of cut it off? Do you know if she was talking to anyone through Tinder or anything else?
I'd say she was definitely active through Tinder.
Why'd you say that?
Sorry?
Well, what makes you say that?
It's because she was showing me.
She was showing you.
Well, like telling, you know.
Sure. So how would she tell you?
Just saying, there's pretty much that she's gonna be on it because I'm not talking to her.
Did she mention specifically anybody she was talking to on the Tinder to you?
Yeah, no names.
No names.
Not surprisingly, Daniel's interview with detectives from the Brevard County Sheriff's Office did little to reduce their concerns. If anything, it quickly turned him into the main suspect in Nancy's disappearance. Investigators placed him under secret surveillance, hoping that his actions would eventually reveal where Nancy was. They also carefully examined his purchases, reviewing surveillance footage from Walmart, Hobby Lobby, and several other locations. Detectives obtained cell tower records as well. They also attempted to collect surveillance video from the CVS pharmacy where, according to Yana, Nancy and Daniel were supposed to meet on February 15th. However, the cameras there provided nothing useful for the investigation. Inside Nancy's vehicle, investigators discovered a receipt from a BP gas station showing that she had made a purchase there earlier that same day. Unfortunately, by the time law enforcement requested the station's surveillance footage, it had already been erased and replaced. Even so, footage from other surveillance cameras would become extremely important in the search for the missing mother of two. Daniel's black Chevy pickup truck was recorded several times by traffic cameras as it traveled toward a remote, lightly populated area in the southwestern part of Palm Bay known as the Compound. Spanning approximately 12 square miles, the area had developed a notorious reputation over several decades as a location connected to criminal activity, drug trafficking, illegal dumping, and the hiding of homicide victims.
Today, a special workshop will be held to address an area of Brevard County known as the Compound. West 2's Tony Atkins is live in Palm Bay this morning. And Tony, this is an area that's drawn a lot of attention lately due to mysterious murders.
During the early morning hours of March 9th, investigators began covertly monitoring Daniel. Law enforcement officers carefully followed his movements, taking every precaution to avoid exposing their presence while documenting everything he did. Detectives observed Daniel place an unidentified item into the bed of his pickup truck, take a shovel, and repeatedly move back and forth between the truck and the house. From where they were positioned, they could not determine exactly what he was transporting, but his actions immediately drew the attention of investigators, and they continued documenting every movement. Shortly afterward, Daniel left his residence and drove south toward the compound. Surveillance teams quickly moved into position and followed him, maintaining a visual on his truck while making sure he had no indication that he was being observed. Officers also contacted the Star Aviation Unit, which monitored Daniel's vehicle from a helicopter traveling several miles away at an altitude of several thousand feet. Maintaining that distance allowed the crew to continue aerial surveillance without attracting Daniel's attention or creating enough sound for him to realize he was being followed. At the same time, ground units worked closely with the helicopter crew, staying in constant communication to maintain uninterrupted surveillance and react immediately if Daniel changed direction or took any unexpected action.
He's going to be going south on whatever that is.
So he just turned southbound on Big Route. I'm directly in front of him.
10-4, I got him southbound on the group. Cars, what I'll do, I'll stay here to the east. Okay. Once he gets in the compound, if that's where he goes.
Officers observed Daniel stop his pickup truck at multiple locations, occasionally stepping out of the vehicle. Each stop was carefully recorded as investigators attempted to understand the reason behind his movements throughout the compound while ensuring they never lost visual contact with him. On Alcova Street, which runs through the compound, Daniel exited his truck and walked approximately 50 feet into a wooded area. He then vanished among the trees for a period of time, leaving investigators able to follow only his general route without being able to see exactly what he was doing. For the Star helicopter crew, the surveillance operation was becoming more challenging. They had to remain far enough away so the sound of the helicopter blades would not alert Daniel, while still keeping constant visual contact with him. It was a continuous balance between staying hidden and keeping the suspect within view. Investigators soon encountered another issue. The helicopter was running critically low on fuel. They now had to manage not only the developing operation on the ground, but also the aircraft's limitations, which threatened to bring the aerial surveillance to an end at any moment.
He's in the woods just north of Alcova.
What's that intersection? Alcova and Kentucky.
Star, just for 43, we're not going to be able to stay here much longer. We're running pretty low on fuel.
Just as Daniel appeared to remove several items from the bed of his pickup truck and take them into the woods, the helicopter crew had no choice but to leave the area to refuel. With the aerial surveillance temporarily interrupted, investigators briefly lost their ability to continuously monitor his movements from above. Despite that, the ground teams continued tracking Daniel and never lost visual contact with him. They carefully followed each action he took, maintaining constant surveillance until the helicopter was able to return. Because of their efforts, law enforcement continued documenting Daniel's behavior even during the short period when aerial support was unavailable.
So you're going to have to get out of here. You're going to drift over top of it. You got the vehicle easier. Get high or go.
We're still 2 miles out and almost 3,000 feet.
Yeah, but unfortunately this time of night, so we can hear you clear as day.
All right, well, you're good. All right, Star, we're 10-4. We're going to have to head back for fuel. He's going to be right in the middle, parked right in the middle, but he's in the northward line. Looks like he just grabbed something out of the back seat. It might have been a shovel, and he's walking into the northward line currently.
Copy us.
Looks like the second set of palm trees, maybe. Second set of palm trees. From his truck, he's about 55 feet into the wood line.
Daniel remained in the woods for several hours. During that entire period, investigators continued watching him closely, attempting to determine what exactly he was doing in such an isolated location and whether his actions could be connected to their investigation. While the helicopter was away refueling, ground units never stopped monitoring him. They followed Daniel to 2 additional locations in the wooded area near Morey Court and Sawzell Avenue, carefully recording the path he traveled and every change in direction he made along the way. When the helicopter returned, Daniel was standing near a canal and appeared to have something in his hands. From that distance, investigators could not determine exactly what he was carrying, but his actions immediately drew their attention and became another detail they documented as part of the surveillance operation.
Yeah, just had the male walk out of the woods to the south of there. Can't tell, but he's got something in his hand.
From a distance of approximately 3 miles, investigators could not clearly identify what Daniel was carrying. They were unable to determine the size of the items or what they might have contained, but his actions immediately drew their attention and appeared unusual. It seemed that he repeatedly moved between his pickup truck and the woods, walking back and forth several times. Each trip gave investigators the impression that he was deliberately transporting something from his truck farther into the wooded area. Afterward, he moved toward the water and, based on what investigators believed they observed, threw several items into it. Because of the distance, they could not determine exactly what had been thrown into the water, but his actions increased their concerns and became one of the reasons law enforcement continued the covert surveillance operation.
All right, Star, he's out of the truck again. Looks like he's walking southbound into that wood line.
Is that like a burn pit right there? I think it is.
Kind of following the ditch line. It looks like he might be putting something in the water. It's really hard to tell because we're about 3 miles out.
After several hours of monitoring Daniel, investigators determined that they could not wait any longer. Considering how the situation was developing, they decided it was time to arrest Daniel Stearns before he had an opportunity to dispose of any further evidence that could be essential to the case. From the investigators' perspective, waiting any longer could have meant losing important physical evidence or making its recovery far more difficult. Because of that, they decided to act immediately, preventing Daniel from continuing whatever he had been doing.
So we're coming in hot right now. So God is in.
10-4. He's in the water right now.
I'm coming around.
All right, I got you guys. He's going to be right at the end of that cul-de-sac right there.
Wait, front.
Where is he, guys? He's in custody. He's in custody.
On March 9th, a human remains detection dog named Tito alerted at 5 separate locations throughout the compound. For investigators, this represented a significant development in the search, as each alert indicated an area where human remains or evidence connected to them may have been located at some point. The first alert occurred on Alcova Street, the same location where Daniel had initially exited his pickup truck. After Tito gave a positive indication there, investigators carried out a detailed search of the area. Tito later alerted near Morey Court. Following that, he indicated a dirt embankment at the end of Sawzell Avenue, adding another location to the investigators' list of areas requiring further examination. The dog also alerted along the edge of a canal where investigators believed Daniel had washed out a bucket shortly before his arrest. In their opinion, that location could become important in understanding the sequence of events after Nancy's death. Finally, Tito alerted on the tailgate of Daniel's pickup truck. It was the 5th and final alert of the day, once again focusing investigators' attention on the vehicle they believed may have been used to transport Nancy's remains.
Yeah, the one that's suicide with the lead drive walking.
Yeah, lead guy's literally going to be right off your nose. A little bit to your right there. It looks like he's got something. There's like something on the ditch line. I can't tell what it is, but something reflective going to be your left. Yep, dead ahead right there. This is where he was, right in the water right here, rinsing something out.
Near the water, investigators discovered a sandal, along with impressions in the sand that matched the circular base of a bucket. Those findings immediately drew their attention because they indicated that someone may have been at the shoreline after Nancy's death, moving certain items back and forth. Investigators then brought in a team of divers to perform a detailed search of the water. They carefully examined the bottom and the shoreline, moving step by step in hopes of finding physical evidence or human remains that could help advance the investigation. Despite their extensive search efforts, they found nothing. The underwater search produced no additional evidence. At 4 separate locations throughout the compound where Tito had alerted, investigators recovered more than 800 bone fragments, teeth, burned pieces of skin, and even a middle finger. The scale of the discovery shocked even experienced investigators, as the remains were spread across multiple areas and had suffered significant damage. Many of the recovered remains displayed severe burn damage, consistent with the burn site investigators had previously observed from the air. According to the investigation, the condition of the remains suggested that they had been exposed to extremely high temperatures. The remains had been left outside for several days, making DNA identification extremely challenging. Extended exposure to the elements greatly complicated the work of forensic specialists and the process of identifying the victim. Despite those difficulties, the medical examiner was eventually able to reach a final determination. After completing the required forensic analysis, experts positively identified the victim. The scattered remains belonged to 44-year-old Nancy Howery. That discovery confirmed the worst fears of both her family and investigators. The medical examiner ultimately determined that Nancy had died from a gunshot wound to the head.
This is a horrific individual. We did a search warrant last night at his location, at his house, recovered multiple firearms. He'd actually burned the body in an effort to destroy any possible evidence.
Daniel Stearns was transported to the police station for questioning. There, investigators began their official interview, attempting to determine what had happened to Nancy and whether he had any involvement in her disappearance. A little more than 4 minutes into the interview, Daniel started telling his version of events. From the very beginning of the interrogation, he began explaining his account, responding to the detective's questions, and slowly describing what he claimed had taken place in the moments before the tragedy.
You're saying you have everything together?
We wouldn't be sitting right here if we didn't.
It was self-defense. I was taking her to the compound to teach her how to shoot. We got there in the middle of me showing her how to aim. She goes for my gun. She nearly gets a hold of it. She fails the first time and she goes absolutely berserk, not wanting to take a loss for an answer. Get into a grapple. She even spits on my hand. After multiple times, I couldn't take the chance again.
When you're saying she, who is she?
Why do I have to say the name?
Because I don't know who you're referring to. You're saying she. I mean, that could be anybody.
I'm referring to Nancy.
Okay. Is that Nancy Howery? Okay.
Daniel Stearns was 12 years younger than Nancy Howery. That age gap became one of the details presented during the trial and was considered by both sides as they examined the circumstances of the case. He weighed slightly more than 200 pounds, while Nancy weighed around 150 pounds. That significant difference in their size and physical build was also part of the case and was brought up repeatedly during the trial. Daniel was a military veteran with professional combat training and had regularly participated in boxing during his time in the Army. His military experience provided him with knowledge of physical confrontations, along with the strength, endurance, and discipline developed through that training. He also told detectives that he had experience with Aikido, a martial art focused on self-defense techniques, controlling an opponent, and handling physical confrontations. He provided that information during his interview while discussing his background and training. Despite this, Daniel claimed that he had no alternative but to kill Nancy. That was the explanation he gave for his actions, arguing that from his perspective, he had been placed in a situation where he believed there was no other option. According to Daniel, he fired only one shot into her head. He stated that the single gunshot was fatal and that it was the only shot he fired that day. He claimed it happened only after Nancy unexpectedly attacked him. That was the series of events Daniel described to detectives as he explained the circumstances surrounding what he claimed was his use of deadly force. Daniel also claimed that the mother of two had training in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He argued that this supported his statement that Nancy had skills in hand-to-hand combat, and he pointed to that as part of his explanation for what he said had occurred.
But you being a 5-pound guy with...
She was in my face. She was never far apart. She spat on my hand in the grapple.
Okay.
Tried to go for a fight, couldn't make it. That's why she did it.
What is the spit in the hand? Why do we keep referring to that? What's that?
Slip.
Okay. So was your gun slipping?
It was.
Okay. So you were able to have your gun. It was slipping, but you had it the entire time during this physical altercation. And at what point did you decide, okay, you know what, I'm done? What made you feel like that?
It seriously felt like my last resort.
After Daniel shot Nancy, he began the process of concealing her body. According to investigators, his immediate actions after her death were not focused on reporting the incident, but instead on hiding evidence connected to the crime. Because of his distrust of law enforcement, Daniel claimed he believed he had no other option but to conceal what had happened, convinced that he would be blamed for murder regardless of the circumstances. That was the explanation he provided during the interrogation, describing what he said influenced his actions after Nancy's death. Daniel stated that he initially carried Nancy's body into the woods and left it on the ground. In that isolated area, he temporarily hid the body before returning at a later time. Afterward, he returned to the same location and buried the remains. According to his account, he did this in an effort to permanently conceal them from both the public and law enforcement. Sometime later, he went back once again. This time, Daniel dug up the remains, placed them into his pickup truck, drove them to another location within the compound, poured charcoal lighter fluid over them, and set them on fire. According to investigators, this was another attempt to completely destroy evidence and prevent anyone from determining what had happened to Nancy. Several days later, while he was already being watched under covert police surveillance, Daniel returned to the area again. There, he gathered the remaining fragments into buckets and spread them throughout different locations in the compound, making them even more difficult to recover. Daniel claimed that the bucket he was seen washing out contained only ashes. He insisted that there were no additional remains inside. He also maintained that he had completely burned everything, claiming that nothing remained of the body after the fire. During a search of his pickup truck, investigators recovered 2 shovels, a pair of gloves, a headlamp, and a tarp. Each of those items was collected as evidence and later analyzed as part of the criminal investigation.
Your body's where you were looking. They didn't find anything.
What do you mean?
It's because I burned her. And then I buried remains.
Okay, so when you shot her, you put her into the woods originally?
I did bury her after some days, and then I unearthed her to burn her.
Daniel Stearns was charged with second-degree murder, abuse of a human corpse, and tampering with evidence. These were the charges prosecutors pursued, believing the evidence they had collected was strong enough to establish his guilt in court. Daniel pleaded not guilty. From the beginning of the trial, he maintained that he had not murdered Nancy, while his defense team developed a strategy focused on challenging the prosecution's case. Ultimately, however, the defense abandoned its self-defense argument. That claim was no longer presented in court, and Daniel's attorneys moved forward with a completely different approach. Once again, Daniel's version of events changed. It was not the first time he had altered his account of what happened before Nancy's death, and those contradictions repeatedly became a major point of discussion throughout the trial. His attorneys successfully argued that his constitutional rights under Miranda had been violated during his final interview with police. According to the defense, investigators failed to follow the proper legal procedure, meaning the statements Daniel made during that interrogation could not be introduced as evidence at trial. As a result, everything Daniel told detectives, including his claim that he struggled with Nancy over the gun, shot her in the head, and repeatedly attempted to hide her body, was ruled inadmissible. This meant the jury would never hear those statements as official evidence against him. The issue was that investigators did not read Daniel his Miranda rights until after he had already revealed most of those details. That procedural mistake ultimately became the deciding factor in the court's decision to exclude his statements. By the time the case went to trial in the fall of 2025, any confession was no longer available as part of the prosecution's case. Prosecutors had to build their argument without relying on those statements and instead present other evidence collected throughout the investigation. Daniel's attorney argued that his client did not kill Nancy. That became the main focus of the defense before the jury, denying Daniel's involvement in the murder and maintaining that he was innocent.
Nancy Howring, a 44-year-old divorced mother of 2 children, was last seen alive on February 15th, 2023. That was the day that this defendant, Daniel Stearns, murdered her. Ms. Howring had been dating the defendant on and off for several months. They had a volatile relationship that he wanted to be exclusive, but that was not.
Prosecutors told the jury that Daniel's internet search history became particularly important after the argument he had with Nancy on Valentine's Day. According to the prosecution, those searches offered insight into what had drawn his attention following the confrontation and the direction his actions seemed to move afterward. They also highlighted that Daniel had searched the website alivedgore.com for uncensored videos depicting murders and executions. Prosecutors stressed that these searches involved graphic, real-world examples of extreme violence and argued that they represented another significant piece of the larger picture they presented during the trial. Among Daniel's internet searches were woman dying from stab wounds, uncensored murder videos, and what prosecutors considered especially telling was the fastest way to teach someone a lesson in Brazil. In the days after Nancy's death, Daniel also conducted extensive searches for news reports about murders connected to the compound, as well as stories involving bodies discovered in that remote area. Prosecutors argued that these searches were not random and attracted investigators' attention because they closely matched the circumstances surrounding the case. Even before his first interview with police, Daniel had already been searching for information about missing persons in Palm Bay. Investigators considered that another disturbing detail in the overall picture, believing it showed an unusual level of interest in the subject before the investigation had officially begun. He also searched Amazon for butane torches. According to the prosecution, that search matched their theory that he intended to burn his former girlfriend's body in an attempt to destroy evidence and make it more difficult to determine how she died. Prosecutors argued that after dating Nancy for several months, Daniel expected her to stop seeing other men. In their view, jealousy and a desire to control her personal life were the factors that ultimately drove the conflict that ended in tragedy. According to the prosecution, Daniel revealed his true intentions when he told police that Nancy had failed to follow his relationship rules. Prosecutors argued that those words showed he was attempting to control her actions and force his own expectations onto their relationship. Whether Nancy went to the compound voluntarily that day was never definitively established. Investigators never found conclusive evidence that could completely answer that question. However, the way she appeared to have abandoned her minivan in such a rushed manner raised serious concerns. Groceries were still on the back seat, while her personal belongings were scattered throughout the front of the vehicle. Investigators believed this could indicate that she did not leave the van willingly, but instead may have been forced or pressured. Regardless, Daniel drove her to that isolated location while carrying a loaded Glock 17. Investigators later recovered that firearm from his bedroom at his parents' home, and it became one of the major pieces of physical evidence presented during the trial. The defense decided not to give an opening statement and did not call any witnesses. Throughout the trial, Daniel's attorneys presented no evidence of their own and instead focused on challenging the prosecution's arguments. During closing arguments, however, the jury heard a different explanation of what may have happened. It was at that point that the defense publicly presented its own theory of the events. Daniel's attorney argued that Nancy may have shot herself. The defense claimed that this possibility could not be completely eliminated simply because there were no witnesses who saw what happened. No one could say with absolute certainty exactly how Nancy suffered the fatal gunshot wound to her head. According to the defense, it was impossible to fully reconstruct the exact order of events during her final moments. There were no other witnesses, and the defense argued that the physical evidence did not provide a conclusive answer. For that reason, Daniel's attorneys asked the jury to consider reasonable doubt and avoid reaching a conclusion they believed was not completely supported by the evidence.
One of the statements the state keeps saying is he shot her in the head. You've heard no testimony that he ever shot her in the head. You've heard nothing about him shooting in the head. You've heard that there is what Dr. Walsh-Haney says is consistent with a gunshot wound, a gunshot exit wound, but not that he ever did anything. Not a single witness has ever said that he shot her in the head, because it's consistent with her shooting herself. It's consistent with an accident. It's consistent with any number of other events. And the core problem here is that the state must prove what happened. And they haven't done it.
The defense acknowledged that after Nancy's death, Daniel cremated her body and scattered her remains, essentially not disputing his actions afterward. This became one of the central points discussed during the trial. However, his attorneys argued that those actions alone did not prove he was responsible for the murder itself. At the same time, they strongly rejected the prosecution's claim that Daniel had dismembered Nancy's body. The defense also argued that, although hiding her remains was shocking, it could not automatically be considered proof that he was the person who killed her. That became the foundation of their strategy throughout the trial, separating Daniel's actions after Nancy's death from the actual act of causing her death. After approximately 2.5 hours of deliberation, the jury returned to the courtroom. The tense wait ended with only a few words that brought the lengthy trial to a close. The verdict was unanimous, guilty on all counts. Before the final sentence was handed down, Todd Howery spoke to the court. Addressing the judge directly, he shared his thoughts on the devastating effect the tragedy had on his family. He told the court that because of the extreme violence of the crime, he strongly believed that if his children had been with their mother that day, their lives could have been at risk as well. In his view, the tragedy could have taken even more lives, and that possibility has continued to weigh on him ever since.
What happened took away my children's mom, took away Nancy from her life, and took away Maureen's only child, her daughter. During that period of time, I have, without any doubt in my mind, that if my children were with Nancy at that time, which they should have been, she was supposed to pick them up from school that day, that he would have done the same thing to my children as to Nancy. I have, without a doubt. You don't slaughter a human being and say, oops, I forgot about these two.
Daniel Stearns was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. That sentence means he will remain incarcerated for the rest of his life with no opportunity for early release. Additionally, the court imposed 2 concurrent sentences of more than 22 years for offenses committed after Nancy's murder. Those convictions involved abuse of a human corpse and tampering with evidence crimes prosecutors argued were carried out to hide what happened and obstruct the investigation. Daniel Stearns is currently serving his sentence at Suwannee Correctional Institution in Live Oak, Florida, where he remains in custody under the court's order.